Okay, now we're to part 2 of section 3.6. We're going to talk about rational inequalities, and they're a little bit more complicated than the polynomial inequalities. Okay, so the first step is the same. You add or subtract so that you get 0 on one side. Notice I say add or subtract. Okay. Then, if you have to, if you've got two fractions, or a fraction and a whole number or something like that, if needed, you need to combine, and I mean add or subtract, by getting a common denominator so that you get only one rational expression. Okay? This method won't work if you have two. Next, you factor the top and bottom as much as possible, and then you proceed as before. Okay, now let me write this. And yes, imagine me yelling at you. Never multiply to clear denominators. Never multiply to clear the denominators. I know that's what we do in rational equations, but this is an inequality. You can't do it because if you multiply by a variable, first of all, you erase part of your answer. You've canceled it out. Second of all, if you multiply by a variable, you don't know if a variable is positive or negative. So you don't know if you were supposed to have changed the direction of your inequality symbol or not. Okay? So never multiply to clear your denominators in an inequality. Everyone's going to do it once, but I'll just get out my red pen. Okay, put a sad face or something. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start with something more complicated. And we're going to go straight to number 9. So I'm looking at number 9. Let's see, I think I could zoom in just a smidge on this. Okay, why won't it let me zoom in? Interesting. Sorry guys. Just took you for a little ride there. Okay. Now, so I'm looking at number 9, so if you can't read that, get out your handout and look along with me. And the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3 from both sides. So I have x plus 12 over x plus 9 minus 3 will be less than 0. Okay, so I subtracted 3 to get 0 on one side. Now I need to get a common denominator, which is going to be x plus 9, and combine it into one rational expression. So, let's see. Make one big fraction bar, x plus 9. I had an x plus 12 to start with. Minus 3, I had to multiply that by x plus 9 over x plus 9, right? Can you imagine that? That I multiplied x plus 9 and x plus 9 on top and bottom? And that's still less than 0. Okay? Now, distribute your negative 3. Don't forget to take the negative. Okay? And you'll have to believe me when I tell you that you end up with negative 2x minus 15 over x plus 9 is less than 0. Okay? So that's what you should end up with. You should hit pause right now and do that math and make sure I haven't made a mistake. And now, let's find our zeros. Okay, let's see. So from the bottom, I get a 0 of negative 9. Now, let me tell you something about a rational inequality. The 0 that comes from the bottom is always an open dot. I will repeat myself. The 0 that comes from the bottom is always an open dot. Why? Because you are never allowed to have 0 in the bottom, so you can never include that number. The 0 from the top in this case will be, let's see, negative 7.5, so about here-ish. Okay, then you test your points just like before. Okay, figure out if they're positive or negative, and it turns out on this one, let's see, I'm going to do the middle. If I put 0 in there, it'll be negative, and then if I put 10 in there, it'll be, wait a minute, something's wrong. If I put 0 in there, it'll be negative. If I put 10 in there, it'll be negative. And if I put negative 10 in there, it'll be Okay, I have to stop and think about this, guys. Okay, I figured out what I did wrong. You guys probably saw it way before I did, and you're yelling at me through the video, I know. Okay, I plotted -9 over here at +9. Sorry about that. So let's put -9 where it belongs. So my zeros are -7.5 and -9. When I test -10, I get negative answers out. When I test -8, I get positive. And when I test 0, I get negative. So only one tiny piece is positive between -9 and -7.5. And I actually want the negative pieces, so that in interval notation would look like -infinity to -9 union -15 halves to infinity. That would be your final answer. Okay. Alrighty. Let's do number 11, shall we? Okay, so I'm looking at number 11. And of course the first thing I do is subtract, and it will be less than 0. Notice I left myself a little space there, and I'm going to get out this. And what would my common denominator be? It would be x plus 6. So I have to multiply top and bottom by x plus 6. And so I will get, I'm going to do some math in my head, 3x minus x squared minus 6x all over x plus 6 is less than 0. Now combine like terms, I get negative x squared minus 3x over x plus 6 is less than 0. Now I can factor a bit in the top. I'm going to factor out a negative x, be left with x plus 3 over x plus 6 is less than 0. Okay, so this time I have 3 zeros. I have a 0 at, see, I'm going to switch to my blue pen now, at 0, okay, and that will be in open dot. They'll all be open this time. I'll have a 0 at -3, and I'll have a 0 at -6. And look, oh good, I graphed it in the right place this time. Okay, and now we're going to test points, okay? So if I pick -10, that will become positive, that will be negative, and that will be negative, so that will all be positive. If I pick -5, that will be positive, negative, positive, that will... Alright, you guys, clearly it's time for me to quit doing math, huh? Okay, let me see if I can just finish this one problem. Let's do this again. If I pick -10 as a test point and I put it in here, when in doubt, get out your scratch paper, I will get -10, -10 plus 3, -10 plus 6. Okay, so that is 10 times -7 over -4. That's positive. I did that. Okay, and then if I pick -5, -5 plus 3 over -5 plus 6, positive, negative, positive. That's negative. Okay. Now, there is another method for doing this where you don't have to do so much math, but the book doesn't do it that way, so I just want to try and match your book. Now, you're going to have to trust me on this when I tell you it's then going to go positive and it's then going to go negative. And I know that because I just looked at the answers and I don't trust myself doing the math anymore. But please stop and make sure that's right. And then what pieces are we looking for this time? This time we want the pieces that are less than 0 or negative. So that's from -6 to -3. Union 0 to infinity. Okay, and that is 3.6. And I think I better stop and I'll do 3.7 tomorrow morning.